What's going on, everybody? We are back to talk about the Oscars. If you don't know, the Oscars are coming up this weekend. There's a lot of great movies that have been nominated. And what I want to talk about today is not necessarily my predictions as much as just a couple of things that I would like to see happen. Things that feel reasonable, but ultimately would just make for a really, really great awards night. I put together 5 things that, again, I think these could happen. I just don't know if they will. Obviously, the Oscars can be unpredictable, even with the other voting bodies and different award shows that we see. It's really coming down to the wire here for a lot of these races. The first one I want to talk about is coming from Best Cinematography. This is usually a pretty stacked category, and this year is no different. And the one I really, really want to see win is Jaron Blaschke for Nosferatu. Generally, the Academy does not recognize horror movies very often. If they do, it tends to be in a technical category like this one. But to me, few movies looked as impressive as Nosferatu did last year. Blaschke has worked with Robert Eggers on all of his projects so far, but this one is by far his most impressive. When you look at some of these shots, like these ones over here, it is easy to see that the nighttime photography is just unbelievable. And normally, I know I had a lot of questions about how they did this. I was wondering if it was something like what they did for Nope, like a day for night type of situation and, color grading and darkening everything afterwards. But it turns out that this is actually a pretty straightforward technique. They used a series of filters that Blaschke actually ended up using on The Northman as well as The Lighthouse. He tried some different things on there and just made this beautiful high contrast nighttime imagery. This is huge because, again, we talk about cinematography a lot. People talk about shot composition and things like that. There's the one perfect shot sort of stereotype of something very symmetrical and things like that. And while composition is a huge part of cinematography, more of it falls under lighting. And like I said, the contrast in the lighting in this, the shadows, the use of darkness in this movie is just out of this world. The candle lighting in the interiors and, just the way that these characters can feel and look so ominous. Down to Nosferatu himself is just something brilliant. And it's impressive to see the way that Robert Eggers, a director with such a strong vision, can have that vision put to life by an amazing cinematographer. So I would love to see this win. It would be a huge, huge surprise for me. I don't think this will necessarily win, but I would love to see it. So that's our first one. The second one comes from the best score category where, again, there's a lot of really great options there, but the one I can't wait to see win, and this one feels realistic, is Daniel Blumberg for The Brutalist. There's plenty of controversy about The Brutalist. There's people who love it, people who think it's one of the best movies in decades, some people it really didn't work for. Of course, there's everything coming down to the best actor race and, even the supporting actor, the direction from Brady Corbet. But the one thing that it feels like everybody can agree on is how brilliant this score is. Beyond the just basic motif of the ba-da-da-da, that's obviously iconic and so memorable, this movie feels epic in literally every sense, and a lot of that comes down to this brilliant score. Building tension, building these narratives and these arcs, having these themes come back, and just covering so many different types of things in this score, it comes together in a way that just takes the movie to a whole nother level. It's a classic orchestral score, so there's a lot of really big horns and big energy to it like that. So we know the Academy loves that. I would not be surprised to see this one win, but I would just love to see something that, again, like I said, everybody can agree, I think, that the score is just one of the strongest pieces of this production, and it would be so nice to see it recognized. The next thing I'd like to see comes from Best Documentary Feature. I want to see No Other Land take this Oscar. And it's not because I believe that a movie like that needs an Oscar to validate its cause or that the filmmakers made this movie with that in mind. Of course, when we see something with a massive social cause like this, it can go one of two ways, where either the Academy is kind of too scared to touch it, and that could be the case with this movie. We saw no distributors wanted to pick this movie up, even though it's vital, it's well done, it's current, it has a lot to say about the world and things that are on people's mind right now. And the few people who have been able to see this movie between festivals, and I was lucky enough to see it because AFI put it on for 1 week only, will all tell you the same thing, which is that it's one of the most moving pieces of cinema in the past year. It serves to educate people on the West Bank settlements and things that are going on in Palestine and Israel right now. And it's something that I think that a lot of people need to see. And so not only do I think that some voters might be scared to vote for it, I think some voters are scared to even watch that movie. And it's something that I think is really important. So if it does win, it would hopefully draw more attention to this cause and to the filmmakers behind it who are still struggling with all the things you see in this movie, and hopefully just push people to be making more types of things like this, movies that reflect our modern times, even as harsh as they may be. we'll just see how that goes on Oscar night. Again, I don't think the filmmakers will be even in attendance. I think they'll probably still be, over in the Middle East. And so there's a lot more on their minds, I imagine, than this movie. But the resounding sort of conclusion of it is just sharing these stories is crucial. People seeing what's actually happening, this footage from right there on the ground is pretty undeniable stuff. So if you have the means to see this movie or seek it out, I highly recommend doing so. My next wish comes for a movie that honestly just did not get enough love this year. It's for Nickel Boys. They were nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay this year. I would love, love, love to see them win this one. I don't know if they will be able to, but that movie just deserved to be talked about and celebrated so much more than it did. Beyond the obviously striking direction from Ramel Ross, having this movie be mostly in first person is such a powerful decision, and it's executed really well, and I think it's easy for us to underrate how difficult that must have been to achieve. And I think a lot of that comes from the brilliance of the screenplay. Beyond just how engaging and thrilling and important this story is, it's impressive to see the way that this can come to life. A production like this can come together, and that these characters can feel so lived in, and that this movie can carry this history with it. It's an important movie, but it's also an entertaining one. Like I said, it's not something we talked about enough. I know it's on my best of the year list. It's on many people's best of the year list, but I think the general nature is that not enough people got the chance to see it. So I know it's nominated for Best Picture, which is so awesome. I sadly do not think it has a chance to do that, but I would love, love, love to see them take that Best Screenplay. Ramel Ross, we see you. We appreciate your work. Please keep delivering brilliant stories just like this one. My last item on this list is probably the biggest one. It feels like it's probably the most outlandish one, but it is kind of crazy to think that this could happen. And it all revolves around Sean Baker. If you don't know, Sean Baker is the writer, director, editor, producer of Anora. He also did the casting for this movie. If you know Sean Baker and his movies, you know he's all over them. He takes a really, really large hand in all of this, and he's a true indie filmmaker. He really puts the production on his back, and he knows what it takes to get movies made. He's done them with absolutely no resources, and this is one of his biggest movies yet, and it paid off in such a massive way. Anora is a brilliant movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend doing that, and I think a lot of people, myself included, are predicting this to win Best Picture at this point in time. Now, if Sean Baker wins Best Picture, that would be huge, but I would also love to see him take Best Director. There's a lot of great directors in that category, but this is a wonderfully directed movie. It really commands a lot of its performances, including a lot of first-time actors. It photographs New York in such a timeless way, and it just simply demonstrates just an immense control from a filmmaker who knew exactly what he wanted to do with this movie and refused to compromise at every single turn. A lot of that also comes from the editing room, where Sean Baker cut this movie himself. I would love to see them take Best Editing for this movie. It is a well-edited movie, and, you can tell that it's exactly what he wanted it to be. And sometimes that really shines through for a director, like in this case. Sometimes it doesn't, but Sean Baker continues to prove that he is one of the most exciting filmmakers in the game, and the stories he's telling are really important ones, I think. And again, I would love to see him take that screenplay for Best Original Screenplay as well. If he does this, he wins 4 Oscars in one night. I'll give the credit to Sean Fennessy in The Big Picture, because they pointed this out first, at least the first that I heard, that if he does take 4 Oscars, he'll be the first person to do that since Walt Disney, which is kind of crazy. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen. It would be a major sweep for Anora, and I think if they take those other 3, editing, screenplay, and director, that Best Picture is pretty much a lock at that point. But I do think that it's pretty impressive just to look at that being a prospect of something that's not totally outlandish. That could happen, and it wouldn't be the most mind-boggling thing possible. So, I know Sean Baker has some controversy around him. I know people have some thoughts about, his production, his movie, but I just urge you to look at the way his actors and his team members talk about working with him, and I think you'll understand what I do, which is just that he is one of the most important filmmakers working today, and that he's somebody that people want to continue to work with, and his projects are something that he really takes a lot of ownership of through and through. And it's been a joy to see him talk about this movie, and even down to the Spirit Awards, where he gave a great speech about indie filmmaking as a whole and what that means and being an indie filmmaker for life. And I just would love to see him talk more on a big stage just about what it takes, because it's inspiring for younger filmmakers, I imagine. This is a guy who went from making movies that felt as low budget as they were, but we're telling powerful stories with powerful characters, and it's now turned into something very, very substantial. And again, this is his biggest effort yet, and I just want to see him continue making more efforts like this. I aim to get back to you soon with some actual predictions. I will try to fill out a ballot. I'll post that in the Discord, so if you're not in our Discord yet, go ahead and join up so you can keep up with us and talk with us on Oscar night. But I do think that there's going to be some fun stuff in the telecast this year. It's been a great awards season so far. Like I said, there's a lot of really amazing movies that we're celebrating this year. I know sometimes we feel like the Academy gets it totally wrong, and while there are some movies that were forgotten or not recognized here, I do think generally they did a pretty good job this year, and I'm excited for the show. So we'll see Conan out there. Hopefully some crazy stuff happens. Nothing too scary, no slaps or anything like that. But if you guys have any big predictions for Oscar night, definitely let me know down in the comments. As always, guys, keep watching great movies and have a lovely day. Peace.